Okay. When I first started to learn and use Python, it was not very long time ago actually. I didn't think much about formatting. It's true, I was just exploring things and didn't collaborate with others. At my first job, I aimed to make the code readable by adhering to PEP 8. All of us probably know PEP 8, but it's just a standard. What if we can use some tool to do the work for us? But first, I should make a warning. If you still use Python 2, Black can be run only with Python 3. Although it does format the code written in Python 2. You can ask me later if you wish. So if you're here with a laptop and Python 3, you can try Black right now. Black is super easy to use. Do pip install Black like you do with any other library, and you can Blackify any Python file using the command Black. Here I'm showing sample example with our repository with tests. And assuming you're in tests configure directory, you can do just Black test access control.py, and that's it, done. The file is perfectly formatted. You can even do it with the whole project by providing the path to it. If you are in test directory, you can do Black configure, and all files in that directory will be Blackified. This example maybe is a bit misleading because Black configure doesn't configure Black or doesn't do configuration of anything. Configure is just the name of the directory where we are. So let's continue with our example. Let's say I don't want to rush and want to see what this magic is going to do. There is one nice option you can pass to Black. It's -- check. It will not do anything with your code, but let you know if it's going to apply any changes. So I did it with my file, and yeah, my code needs some Black magic. So you see broken heart, yeah, something's going to be done. However, that doesn't say much, right? I want to know exactly what is going to happen to my code. There is an option for that too. You might be familiar with it if you use Git. It's --diff. So you do Black --diff test access control, and it will output the diff for each file on standard output, but will not apply any changes. So in my example, there was a lot of output. My file was badly formatted. But I picked up one short example, is that Black changed single quotes to double quotes. And this is one thing that you should bear in mind, that Black prefers double quotes over single quotes. They have numerous reasons why they do that. We can discuss it later again. If you want to play around with Black and then don't want to install anything, there is a great playground created. You can go to black.now.sh. You don't need to install anything. You can paste some of your code to the left pane and see the output on the right. And all the magic happens in your browser. So it's cool, even if you have Python too. If you don't like command line tools, there are some solutions how you can integrate Black in your favorite IDE. For example, my favorite IDE is PyCharm. And you can add Black as a tool there. It's very simple. You add it as external tool. You need to provide Black path. So first you need to install Black anyway. Then you provide path to it. And then you can apply Black to any files that you're working with. So you have some file open. You can go to tools and apply this Black. But it's not very convenient. So the second best thing that you can do is to create a shortcut. So to map this tool to some shortcut. That will make your life a bit faster and easier. And actually, in the documentation, you can find that you can integrate Black with a lot of other editors. There are probably some even plugins for Emacs and Vim. But I actually don't use it much because I use command line tools. Just I found this option and thought it would be interesting. OK, so everything looks like magic. Everything is cool. But what about using it in a team? First of all, why do we need such tool at all? That is the reason. When I was working mostly on my own, I didn't pay that much attention to formatting. I felt the code looks nice when it's consistent, but it doesn't take any extra effort when I work on my own. Although I have to mention that if you work on your own, your style still changes over time. So if you go back a few years back what you wrote, you will probably be shocked what you did. So I felt the code was nice, but I didn't use any tools. But when I joined Red Hat and became part of code review process, I realized that it could be frustrating. And first of all, don't get me wrong, I like code reviews. I actually one of these persons who do. I like see how others see my code. I like to do the code review because that's actually a great way to learn, and it's a great way to see what other people in your team are doing, so you can have some shared knowledge, because otherwise you just don't, if you have a huge repository, it's impossible to know everything. But receiving comments about formatting is pretty annoying, and I actually myself don't like giving such comments like, please remove this blank line, it doesn't look very nice. People will think that I just don't read the logic or something, that I'm just like human linter, you know. So we need to encourage consistency. The code we do mostly is open source, and we want other people to contribute. So how do we do that? The answer is quite simple, by applying a style guide. Usually teams and companies go beyond PEP8 and create their own style guides. And one of the most well-known, well, it became well-known, is Google's PyGuide MD, which is very nice. But by the way, maybe not everyone heard that Google created their own auto-formatter that is named YAPF, which stands for Yet Another Python Formatter. And I put this example here because I like one interesting thing about it, that in PyGuide MD, they reference their auto-formatting team, well, auto-formatting tool, that many teams use YAP auto-formatter to avoid arguing over formatting. So as you see, I'm not the only one who believes that we need to enforce style guide. And Black solves these problems very easily. Consistent code has other benefits besides looking nice. I don't think anyone would argue that consistent code is easier to maintain by team, and it also helps to perceive code review more as a positive thing. Arguing about parentheses and quotes only puts more stress on the team. Removing the arguing about formatting also helps to maintain no blame culture, because you literally have no one to blame. You can blame Black if you wish, but it's kind of useless. Black is not, so let's continue with Black. Black is not very configurable. Pretty much all you can configure is line length, which is by default 88 characters. And some of you may think, why? Because on PEP8 it's 79, but also we can discuss it a bit later. Black takes care about a lot of things, including line wrapping, line lengths, empty lines, trailing commas, parentheses, double quotes, and a lot more. I personally like how Black does line wrapping. This is a quick example from Black's documentation, actually. So, for example, if you have something that fits into one line, so that will be it. Nice, more readable. If the expression doesn't fit into one line, so the expression inside the brackets will be formatted into a separate line. And I think that definitely increases readability. And the best thing about it is that it's done automatically. As I told earlier, Black enforces double quotes. However, if you have some old project that uses a different convention for using quotes, for example, I heard some people use single quotes for data, double quotes for human-readable data, or single quotes for dictionary keys. You can always pass the option skip string normalization. That will not change your precious single quotes. However, this option is discouraged to use in new projects. It's like for compatibility with the old ones. If you have a new project, you can apply everything. Some people would argue that single quotes are faster to type, which is true, and I personally do that. But the best thing that we are talking about auto-formatting tool. So you can type whatever is faster to type, and then apply Black, and it all will be the same. So type whatever is faster. If you don't want Black to touch some pieces of your code at all, you can also do that. You can do so by adding this command format off and format on, and this part of the code will be completely excluded for black. And of course, as with all Python code, it needs to be on the same level of indentation. The other thing that I find very useful and that I want to talk about today is pre-commit hooks. If you don't already use it, you need to install it using pip install precommit, and then create a configuration YAML file, which is very easy. I will show you next slides, and do precommit install. This YAML file is placed in your repository. Therefore, everyone uses the same configuration. The best thing about it is that you can fix formatting problems even before you push your changes. So let's talk about precommit in more details. Git can run special scripts in various parts of the workflow, like before or after commit, and push and receive events. Precommit module for Python takes care of identifying simple issues before you submit your code for review. Again, reducing some nitpicky comments. The precommit script is executed every time you run git commit before you provide commit message or commit object is generated. You can use this hook to inspect the snapshot that you are about to commit. And for example, you can write some automated tests and make sure that your commit doesn't break anything. So actually, it looks like a perfect place to check formatting. Here is a part of precommit config YAML in our repository with tests. And as you see, adding black as a precommit hook is not a complicated process. You just need to add a few lines to your precommit config, and you can also pass any arguments that you've seen before, that we discussed before, such as line length. As you see, we use a bit different line length. We use 100, which is, by the way, the maximum recommended, because if you have a bigger line length, it will be difficult to see the diffs, like compare code side by side, but 100 is okay so far. And if you're gonna ask me about another argument, which is safe, safe is passed by black by default. The other option is fast. It's like the opposite of safe. And if you pass fast, black will skip some of the checks. So I recommend safe. I don't think it's much slower. After you define your precommit config YAML, it's time to install your hook into your Git directory. Just run precommit install, and you should see the message that precommit is installed. So it's very simple. So our hook is installed, and let's check how it works. I made some changes to this port test access control.py, and I want to commit them. So I do git commit, and now I see how precommit works. It installs the environment and executes the hook. And the hook failed. It failed because black failed, but as you see below, the file was modified by this hook. So it means the black was actually applied. And because the hook failed, the file was not committed. As the error was fixed by the hook itself, I need to add the modified file to Git and commit again. If you want to check what the black did here, you can use usual git diff command before you do git add and make sure that everything is fine. Now the precommit hook passed and the changes were committed. And I guess it's really nice to catch formatting problems before the code is even committed. Nice, isn't it? So I would say the closest popular compatible tool to black is that YAPF that I mentioned before. And why I'm not talking about YAPF today? That's a good question. First of all, because YAPF would sometimes produce different results over the same time, over the same file. So to me, it doesn't match the definition of consistency. I also had some discussions yesterday and day before yesterday, and some people just confirmed my observations that it is true. YAP can do some different formatting on the same file. So you run it twice and have different results. And the second one is that YAP is a configurable tool. So it's opposite to Black, which you just run. If to YAP, you need to provide a configuration file. And it makes using it in a big team a bit more complicated. So if you want to introduce such auto-formatting tool in a big team, Black is much simpler solution. The next one I wanted to mention is White, which actually is a less configurable version of Black. White was written by creator of Python requests and enforces the line length of 79 characters that is recommended by PEP8. So if it's the only issue that stops you from using Black, try to use White. The other alternative that people use is AutoPEP8, and I'm also not talking about it today because it is configurable like YAP, and this, for the same reason we consider it a downside and we don't use it. It has a bit different way of working because it fixes issues reported by PyCode style, the default linter. I also haven't talked about linters today, such as PyLint or FLAC8. However, I'm not saying that auto-formatters replace lint tools. I have a linter in my PyCharm running all the time in the background, and I find it very useful because it helps me to find where I missed something or just forgot. So I definitely don't want to drop it. It's just a different tool. So how do you like Black? Anyone likes it? Okay, I see some people. Okay, some people converted probably. So in this presentation, I showed you how you can use Black to format your code. Consistent code is important, and everybody in the team benefits from the shared code style. You also can use Black just for yourself because it helps keep formatting of your own code consistent. So the style will be the same over time. The usage of Black in teams has even more benefits because many people contribute to the repository and will still have the same style. The one way I showed to introduce it to the team is to use Precommit hooks. Incorporating Precommit hooks in your workflow helps to keep the code consistent even before it is committed to the repository. So since I tried Black for the first time, I really fell in love with it. It's much easier to let software do our job than play a human linter game in GitHub. So I encourage you to try it as well, and if you like it, go further with using it yourself and as a pre-commit hook in your team. So thank you. I was a bit faster. So I guess I'm on time. If you have any questions?
You're definitely on time. And we do have a few questions which will show up on the screen in a moment. Let me try and read them out. Does Black work with Jupyter notebooks as well?
Actually, I don't use Jupyter notebooks, so I'm not sure. I need to check.
Are you doing review of pre-commits?
Yes, we do.
Anything more?
Yeah, of course we do review of pre-commits, and it works so far. If you see something failed in pre-commit in GitHub, of course we investigate, does this pre-commit hook actually make sense? So of course we do review of pre-commit. We don't trust it like 100%, but it works, I would say 99% of the time. I didn't measure, just made up this number.
Sure. Is it possible to add Black as an auto-fixer to pre-commit so you don't have to manually add and commit the fixed files?
I'm not sure I understand the question correctly, but I think that's what I talked about. That's how you add Black to pre-commit, and it fixes the files. Yeah.
Thank you. We will ask Juhis to come over and discuss in detail. Would you recommend Blake on old and big project in Python too? Seriously, guys? Would it be an overkill?
I think, You can, but first of all, Python 2 will be dropped in half years. That's the first thing. Second, Black can modify Python 2 files because it can make difference between Python 2 and Python 3. But honestly, I think it's gonna be overkill because I assume that you will rewrite it in Python 3 anyway anytime soon.
Thank you. How did your team decide to adopt Black?
Well, I guess everyone wants the shared code style, and we decided to try, so it works so far.
Cool. Does anybody have any further questions? That's probably a no. So again, thank you very much.